You're listening to the Heal with Affirmations podcast, and this is episode 11. It gets worse before it gets better. Welcome to the Heal with Affirmations podcast, where I tell you all about affirmations and how you can use them to heal yourself and change your life. Find out for yourself firsthand what affirmations can do for you. I'm your host, Layla, and I'm delighted to share these ideas with you. Welcome back to the podcast. If this is your first time listening in, I am delighted we found each other. The affirmations work definitely does not get the credit it deserves, but I sure hope you will find out for yourself from taking up some of these ideas we cover in this podcast. I want to suggest that you listen to the episodes in their order, or at least tune into some of the earlier ones. That's because there are foundational ideas that we build on as we progress with the affirmations work. And be sure to download your free guide so you can get started right away with your practice. In this episode, I want to address a pretty common experience that happens when we start doing affirmations or when we start a new round of affirmations. And that is that things seem to get worse before they get better. Now, when we're first getting started with the practice, we don't necessarily know that they will get better, but we do experience things going wrong a little or going out of hand in some ways. So let's spend a bit of time on this interesting phenomenon and explore it from a few different angles. As each of us is unique, there are pretty much infinite possibilities for how things get worse before they get better. But here are a few examples. You affirm for prosperity or more money, but then you lose some money or something else, or something gets taken away from you or taken back from you, and you could lose your spot at an event and things like that. You affirm for relationships, but then you get into an argument with someone, you get disappointed in someone, or someone lets you down, cancels on you, and things like that. You affirm for home improvements and things start breaking down. Repairs get expensive, or you feel you dislike some things about your space. You affirm for getting a new item or something new, and things get in the way. You don't get it, you don't get what you want, or you lose something, and so on. Do any of these examples resonate with your experiences? What are some of the it get worse annoyances that came your way when you started doing your affirmations? I always love to hear of the multitude of experiences that people go through. When authors describe this phenomenon, and I must admit that only a handful of authors appear to be familiar with it, they mention simple and easy examples of this phenomenon, like the ones I just did. But I must tell you that it is possible that some pretty heavy-handed things can happen when you first affirm something. It is certainly my experience, and I have heard from some of you as well as others that I've worked with. There isn't really a formula that underlies how big or how small these it gets worse issues will be. But it is possible that the deeper the issues behind the desired change that you are affirming for, the bigger the it gets worse issue that comes up when you first get started with the affirmations. But again, there isn't a formula, so this isn't a must. How things might get worse before they get better is not only unique to you, but also to every round of affirmations you do, at least most of the time. Also, it is not always the case that things get worse before they get better, although in my experience, they do. Personally, I prefer that things do get worse before they get better. I appreciate that this can sound a bit strange, but I am reassured when they do because then I know the process would have started, and we'll get into this in a bit. So why do things get worse when we start doing affirmations? It is truly quite a curious phenomenon. There isn't a definite explanation for why it happens, and any explanation would be just that, an explanation. But based on the work we do with affirmations and with experience, we can get some interesting insights based on what we go through. Having firsthand experiences with affirmations and the peculiarities of this work, like it gets worse before it gets better episodes, enables us to figure out some things about what is happening behind the scenes. For one, when things get worse at first, when we're first getting started with affirmations or with a round of affirmations, it signals to us that the process has been put into motion. It is a sign. And I think it is a really good thing that we get a sign to know that something has started. It is one of the reasons I appreciate that things get worse before they get better, even if the issue that comes up is heavy-handed. I can tell you that it is a sign that the process started because I've done the work before. I have experience with it, and I know that things will turn around. But I appreciate that if you haven't done this work before, you might not know that things will really turn around and you could lose faith in doing affirmations. And really, this is the whole reason why I am talking about this in this episode. So I can tell you that this is part of the process, and I want to encourage you not to lose faith and to stick with your affirmations. So when we say the process has started, what process is that exactly? Well, simply the process of change that you are wanting and that you are affirming for. So again, when things get worse before they get better, it is because this process of change has started. Another reason why things can get worse before they get better is because the process of change could be highlighting what needs to change and what will change thanks to your affirmation and assuming you stick with it long enough. That issue or problem that comes up when you get started with your affirmations is or is part of what you are trying to change. It is also possible that you are not aware that this is the issue that needs to change or is part of it. So pay attention to when things get worse because you are being shown the way and your awareness is deepening. This is another reason why I appreciate it when things get worse before they get better. I like to know what needs to change, or at least what's part of it. And a third reason I appreciate this phenomenon is that I feel that when things get worse before they get better, it probably means that the change that I want is going to go pretty deep. And yes, the reason I am doing affirmations is precisely because I want real and deep changes. I am not looking for a cosmetic adjustment. As I said, sometimes the problems that come up when things get worse can be pretty serious. They are not always small signs that nudge you kindly to tell you things have started to move. In my experience, again, they are pretty heavy-handed. But now that I know, I can stick with it. I know what's on the other side of it. That's part of the reason why it is very important to be willing to change. Your willingness to change is the faith you have in yourself to pursue this journey of change when you don't really know how it will play out. Your willingness to change is what pulls you through and keeps you on the path of change that you want. As I like to say, keep wanting. Honestly, doing affirmations is not for people who want shallow changes. The affirmations work comes across as cute and sweet because the affirmations that we use are kind and loving statements. So to some, it might sound frivolous, and is probably the reason why many people don't do this work to start with. But actually, it is the best kept secret of the affirmations work. It sounds cute, but it is big work. Repeating your affirmations will erode the issues that are preventing your good and your positive changes. And most people have no idea how heavy this work can be. In fact, I suspect that on some level, people know that affirming something so good as a positive affirmation is a leap in consciousness that they are not really ready for. And often, those who dismiss affirmations as frivolous and just too cute to be anything real are often not ready for that kind of change. But again, I remind you to leave others alone and to take care of your own patch of the garden. Do your affirmations, turn your life around in the way that you want, and live your best life for the rest of your life. Pay attention to what is happening when things get worse. What is the issue that came up? Does it reflect a pattern? Is it an issue you've experienced before? You can probe into this experience a little, and you might come out with some pretty interesting insights. So far, we suggested that things get worse before they get better. So we have a sign that the process has started. So we get some insights into what needs to change. So we get an indication that the change ahead is probably deep. But another major reason things get worse before they get better is that what is preventing our good needs to be purged. This is usually when things can get pretty dramatic and there is an outpouring of emotions. The pain, the anger, the sadness, the regret, etc., can all start to come out when things get worse before they get better. Let me tell you, and I know you might not believe me, but I so look forward to that happening now that I know what is possible with affirmations. This is 100% part of the healing and what needs to be dissolved in order to manifest your good. You need to process these things out if you want to manifest your good. Your affirmations process is bringing these things up to the surface for you so you can see them, acknowledge them, deal with them, and process them. The emotional journey is really key. Emotions are such an interesting thing. It is really important for you to experience it all and to be willing to see so you can heal and clear the way for what you say you want. I definitely know what it can be like. I 100% know how difficult it can be, but I want to encourage you to stick with it, and I want you to be happy with yourself that all of this is coming out for you to deal with. Seriously, you would like to go through life without clearing all of this? A very interesting observation I have made through my practice with all sorts of psychospiritual and magical and even occult fields is that this process of things getting worse before they get better happens not only with affirmations, but in fact across many different areas, physical and spiritual, where we are trying to create change. A very common one is in physical detoxification. When someone stops eating unhealthy foods, stops eating meat, dairy, processed food, fried food, etc., and clean up their diet, it is very common that they become sick with a fever, develop rashes, and experience other reactions. It is not always possible to predict what kind of reaction someone will have because their history is unique. But in general, when someone stops eating the bad and ugly foods, especially when they do it all in one go, it is very common that they experience reactions and sometimes even scary ones. Many who are inexperienced with making deep dietary changes, including most doctors and other priests and gurus of the scientific variety, they interpret these reactions to mean that not eating these foods is bad for you, so they get back to eating them. And indeed, many who try deep dietary changes will get scared from these reactions and think they need to be eating the way they were before. So they drop the attempt to change and revert back to their old ways. But this is false thinking. We can explain what is happening like this. When you stop eating the bad foods, your cells have breathing room to release the toxins that had been building up in them. These toxins are released into the bloodstream, and they circulate for a while until your body completely releases them out. And this is what we call detoxification. It is the same idea as when someone has withdrawal symptoms from a drug addiction. It gets worse before it gets better. And with some drugs, it gets much, much worse. It is also likely that cells release these toxins in batches, if you like, and not so much in one go. You can imagine that there is an accumulation of toxins and not all of it can be unloaded at once. And so this adds to the length of time we are in this state of detoxification. Detoxification is not disease. It is misinterpreted as disease, and unfortunately often results in people dropping the change. What a pity that they don't give themselves enough time to overcome this phase and experience what's on the other side of it. Now, I know you will tell me I'm not a scientist or a doctor, and I will tell you, thank goodness I'm not. I do not have much respect for the medical industry, but let me address this point in our episode about using affirmations for health and physical healing a little bit down the line. For now, let us just reiterate what I love to repeat often. Do not outsource to others what you can find out for yourself firsthand. We know what is happening with detoxification because we can experience it firsthand. And if we give ourselves some time to get through it, we will overcome these challenges and discover the truth about what it means to be healthy. And it's the same with affirmations. When we're first getting started, we could quote unquote detox, sometimes aggressively. But if we give ourselves some time to get through it, we could land in a pretty amazing place. Another area where we can experience this it gets worse phenomenon is when decluttering. In the last episode, we focused on decluttering and talked about how you can use this amazing outside in approach for releasing inner patterns. Beyond home organization, decluttering is about severing ties with anything that isn't true to who we are today. When you are able to get rid of the physical things that are associated with these experiences, you would have resolved them and let them go. We cannot and should not force this to happen, but we must spend the time on the decluttering process and focus on making decisions to let go. When we declutter, especially when we do it a bit more aggressively, we can experience a tangible shift in energy, and this can produce an it gets worse episode. It is very much like a detox, and I would say it is a detox proper. With decluttering, it gets worse experiences can be issues like getting into arguments with others, getting into trouble at work or in our business, expenses might pop up, and other typical it gets worse experiences. Not very different from what we could experience when we're doing affirmations. On a shallower level, the house can get seriously messy when you start decluttering before it is in order again. This clearly represents the mess in our mind. And I'm always amazed at how these things are symbolic and really not symbolic. And in another area that is closely connected with the decluttering process is with the feng shui of a space. We can experience the it gets worse phenomenon when applying feng shui to a space. Moving around furniture, applying some cures, and using other feng shui techniques can produce it gets worse experiences. As with decluttering, you could also see this happen in the house in small ways. For example, you could have a light bulb pop or a printer fail or other similar oddities and dysfunctions can happen around the home. And this is because the energy shifts. Energy is not imaginary, it is real and physical. And Feng Shui is a really fun way to see this in action. But apart from these little things that pop up as a result of shifting the energy of a space, you can experience it gets worse experiences that affect you in deeper ways in your life and like you would when starting affirmations or decluttering. So if, for example, you improve the feng shui for your relationships by doing something in the relationships corner of your home, you could experience challenges with people and similar examples with the different corners of the space. And yet another area where you can experience an it gets worse episode is when casting spells. You may or may not believe in casting spells, and I'm personally not so inclined to them these days, although I have done them very successfully. Spells operate just like an affirmation. In fact, spells are an affirmation, and they literally use incantations, which are affirmations. So when you do a spell, you could experience an it gets worse episode. I will have more to say about spells and magical practice another time, and I mean magic with a K. But in general, let me say that all they are essentially an affirmation. I personally prefer to just do affirmations. Also, spells don't work most of the time because you can't do an affirmation just once and expect to get results. The work is not magical in the superstitious sense, it is practical. But there are times when spells work, and I have my own explanation for this, which, as I said, we'll get to another day. Now, just to be clear about something, if you deal in black magic and practice dark spells on others, which hopefully you don't, what a negative affirmation, you will most likely receive what you send out. This is because you always reap what you sow, and life is a mirror, as we talked about in a previous episode. So you always get back what you send out. With a dark spell, you know it is working when you experience the challenge that you send out because you sent out that challenge. So, in essence, it is not the same as experiencing an initial, it gets worse before it gets better episode. In this case, it is more like a confirmation that your spell worked because it boomeranged back to you. So, maybe you should be happy. Of course, I'm kidding. Don't be bad. Do I believe that you can hex someone? Not really, not without their permission. But let's leave this magic topic for another day. So, to recap, experiencing an episode of it gets worse before it gets better is not limited to the affirmations practice, but it applies in just about any area where we set an intention to create change. I gave you 4 examples: physical detox, decluttering, Feng shui practice, and spell casting. Are there other areas where you have experienced an it gets worse before it gets better episode? Please let me know. I would love to hear all about it. When you start doing affirmations and you get the it gets worse experience, the issues that can come up can be light or they can be big. And like I said, in my own experience with doing affirmations, the issues that come up tend to be big deals and can be really heavy handed. At this point, you might feel overwhelmed and wonder why all this is happening. I certainly understand where you're coming from. You might wonder if something is wrong with doing affirmations. But remember that all you are doing is saying positive things to yourself. How could your affirmations do any harm? Normally, we don't doubt the good that affirmations can do for us. Instead, we get overwhelmed with the issues that come up as the process begins, so we forget to think and speak positively. And so we could get upset and distracted by the issues to the point that we fall out of doing affirmations. We lose inspiration, really. But I want to encourage you not to fall out of your practice, especially at this critical juncture. This is a turning point and it could be quite painful, but you really need to burn through it and get on the other side of it. Think of it as a detoxification. You could also see it as a bottleneck and you're squeezing yourself out. Do you want to drop out and stay at the bottom inside the bottle? What you're doing here is very important. You know you are on your way to making deep changes because these are not average experiences. They are exceptional phenomena and you are experiencing something really special. Don't miss out on the opportunity to make real and lasting changes in your life. It also gets easier with time, so hang in there. This said, I also want you to keep in mind that when you're on the other side of this initial it gets worse experience, you're still at the beginning of your affirmations process. You will not immediately manifest the essence of your affirmation. It needs a bit more time. You won't be in the it gets worse state forever, but you won't be in your desired state right away either. Consistency is key with affirmations. This is true of anything that you want to succeed at, in fact. Without consistency, you cannot achieve your desired results. And remember that when you repeat affirmations, you need that critical mass of positive and new affirmations to overwhelm the long-standing negative affirmations and replace them. It does take a bit of time and practice, and there is quite a bit more to go through before your new affirmation replaces the old pattern and becomes integrated into your consciousness. I do not want to discourage you, but I do want to share with you what I know about this amazing practice so you can stick with it and reap its incredible benefits. Your process is unique to you, and if you want to discover it, you have to do the work and stick with your affirmations. I am being honest about this because I think many authors in the field are not. Many authors keep it light when, in truth, Most of the time, it's not. So I want to be real with you because I know firsthand that the results are 100% real and possible. I also do not want you to indulge in superstitious thinking. It is not a good idea to expect miracles and to think of doing affirmations as waving a magic wand. It is not. Superstitious thinking is a serious disadvantage, and doing affirmations can very much help you see past the many veils that pass for spirituality and things like that when they are not. They are dreamy states of wishful thinking. Affirmations are very powerful because they don't assume any belief in anything supernatural. They are simply about reprogramming your mind, and what happens then is for you to discover. But the process of change has to unfold, and you need to keep repeating your affirmations to see this happen. This said, with consistency and practice, you will experience the magic, the real magic. Another consideration that comes up at the point when you experience the it gets worse phenomenon is that you might want to change your affirmation. There are times when it makes sense to move to another affirmation, and we are often guided to do so, but it is not at this stage. Even if you're inclined to change your affirmation and you think it is your intuition speaking, I would encourage you not to change it. When you experience the it gets worse phenomenon, you would have kicked off the process of change for this affirmation cycle. You are just at the beginning of the process, so it is too early to change your affirmation. If you do, you won't get to the bottom of this and you won't manifest the essence of your affirmation. You will focus on something else and you will veer away from the essence of the current affirmation. And also, every time you start a new affirmation, things can get worse before they get better. So if you jump from affirmation to affirmation, you will keep getting it gets worse experiences and you won't ever get to experience the it gets better part. So be patient. The goal is very much to overcome these issues that come up and discover what's on the other side of all this. So, how do we deal with these issues? Apart from the general advice of telling you to stick with your affirmations, I want to offer you some more thoughts and perspective for dealing with these sticky times when the process shakes you up. For starters, you can try dealing with your affirmations as a mechanical practice. Yes, putting heart and positive emotions into your affirmations as you speak them and repeat them is ideal. But when you're turned off by the issues that come up, then you might not be able to put your heart into it. Still, repeating your affirmations, even if mechanically, is better than not doing them at all. And for those times when you're not feeling good about it all, treat your affirmations practice like having to brush your teeth and doing routine things like that. Give yourself 5 to 10 minutes, morning and evening, for example, and sit down and repeat them and get them done. I can tell you, you won't always feel detached from your affirmations because they do have a way of engaging your heart and emotions. And naturally, this is one of the goals. But again, if you're feeling disengaged, doing them is better than not doing them at all. So try to be as consistent as possible. At the same time, be gentle with yourself. Don't hate on yourself for any reason. Just commit to doing your affirmations and give yourself a bit of time to doing them. Soon enough, this sticky phase will pass and you will feel a lot more enthusiastic about your affirmations and your process, especially as your mindset changes and you begin to attract your good. At that point, you will be very happy with yourself for doing this, and you will wonder why you spent so many years of your life not doing affirmations. Something else you can do to help you through this it gets worse phase is to add a general affirmation to the one you're focusing on. So, for example, in addition to whatever affirmation you're doing right now, you could affirm that you're willing to change, you're willing to let go, that you love yourself, and similar affirmations that involve change, release, and forgiveness. So here are a few of them, and some of them we've been through in previous episodes. And really, these are great affirmations for any time you are stuck and don't know what to affirm or how to cope. I am willing to change. I am willing to forgive. I let go. I trust the process of life. Everything happens in the perfect time and space. The perfect scenario now comes to pass, and I am safe and free. You can use any of these affirmations or any one you come up with to help keep you still as you go through this phase. Just don't give up on your affirmations and give yourself a chance to discover this process. Keep repeating your affirmations until you get to the bottom of your issue. You will in time, and you will know when it happens. Let's close this episode, but I do have one final thought for you. I would like to suggest that as you experience this turbulence, stop and ask yourself, where am I? Where am I? I love this question. I love asking myself, where am I? This is the present moment. This is where it all happens. Isn't it great? This is so worth it. I am so glad I am here, and I am so glad you are here with me, and I sure hope you feel this way too. Doing affirmations can change your life. If you want to begin your journey with affirmations, pick an affirmation today or create one and repeat it often. You can also sign up to my email list for updates and visit the links in the description for my guides and resources. Thank you for listening.